Back once again with another one of my podcasting. Let's go. Whorephobia. Another word you need to worry about. A real word, according to Kelly Kibb over at Inside Hook. You know, I always like talking about her and bringing up the story. So here's what we got. Here's what it means and why you should care. The demonization of sex work and sexual liberation has been around forever. Will we ever care about the damage it causes? Well, but part of the thing that I think Kayla doesn't bring up of the fact is just what we're seeing right now with OnlyFans and things where, you know, if there's any kind of issues where women are feeling the fact that they're getting exposed and they're being exposed sexually, it's really online than it is in person. But whorephobia is where we're going to get through and talking about here. Comedian Anya Vols had the distinct yet relatable misfortune of revisiting some of her favorite films from the early aughts, early zeros, for if you didn't know, only to discover they're really pretty problematic. She says that trying to enjoy the comedies I grew up watching now, seeing how incredibly racist, homophobic, sexist, whorephobic, and ableist they all were, she says she mistakenly left out transphobic, which is perhaps a more prevalent offense than all the other things combined. Now, whorephobic, actually, she says, is a thing, Kayla says. One you should probably be aware of, especially as the sex workers' rights movement continues to gain traction in conversations surrounding sex work and sex workers, increasingly enter mainstream conversations. Well, remember, OnlyFans has taken a big chunk of their market. And the pandemic has taken away some of the sex work that's out there publicly. And we're only waiting for things that are going to start opening back up. Las Vegas, let's go. Anya Vols goes along and says, quote, all the people making fun of the word whorephobic are telling on themselves as whorephobic. Vols wrote, encouraging any similarly uninformed readers to follow more sex workers and sex work educators. Whorephobia refers to fear, hatred, or prejudice against sex workers, though the term can also be used interchangeably with words like slut-shaming to refer more broadly to prejudice against any sexually liberated person. Notes polyamorous educator Tiana Glitterosaurus Rex, co-founder of the Sex Work Survival Guide, a non-profit organization advocating for the rights and safety of sex workers. Well, I don't know. What do you want? You know, sex work, there's supposed to be the whole idea of feminism, and that sex work is looked down upon. I thought it was being looked more down upon by women than it was men. I don't know what the whole deal here with whorephobia is all about. I'm trying to understand what she's trying to get through here. So Glitterosaurus Rex says that whorephobia refers to the fear or shaming of sexually liberated individuals, or more specifically sex workers. And you would hear its effects can be found in everything from censorship to discrimination against sex workers by banks and vendors to opinions like, I would never date a girl with an OnlyFans, she adds. In its most basic and most often aggressive form, whorephobia can be seen in marginalization of sex workers whose profession and very identity remain illegal in very many places. Whorephobia is what keeps sex work illegal and leaves its practitioners' lives and livelihoods in danger. So if the sex worker is the butt of a joke, the joke is whorophobic. I'm so confused about this because it sounds like everybody's kind of been cracking down on porn in the first place, and now this whorophobic kind of deal is trying to go and protect. I don't believe this is actually protecting or defending the sex workers at all. It's just another tag because sex workers are meant to be victimized. Well, no, women are victimized. And sex workers, for whatever reason, or however they decided to land upon sex work, I know most of them probably, I would imagine, did not want to be into this right away. Some could be sexually active to the point where they feel like there's enjoyment to it. But we all know that there's a reason where sex work was, it was a means to an end, and because of something that happened where some women decided to go ahead and decide to do this as a profession. There's nothing wrong with it, especially when you're a younger woman and you feel like you want to be able to use your beauty, your body, and use it for other means. I don't see what the problem is. But again, prostitution is looked down upon as well because women are meant to be more feminist, not look so glamorous, not look so whorish like that. I thought feminists were actually looking down on whores, or looking on women that are very sexually active. Because feminists are not necessarily sexually active, as far as I know. You tell me if I'm wrong. So Volz continues on her Twitter thread, quote, if the joke is that prostitution is inherently demeaning, or that strippers have daddy issues, or that doing porn means you're stupid and have some self-respect, the joke is whorephobic. Educate yourselves. Whorephobia is so insidious and deeply baked into our collective consciousness that one needn't even be actually a sex worker to become a victim of whorephobic jokes, violence, or prejudice. Women getting called whores when they like sex, facing the stigma that if you sleep with a certain number of people, when you're not marriage material, or a female exec getting fired after nudes were leaked without consent, are all examples of whorephobia that non-sex workers, particularly women, face everyday life. Women are brought up to think of sex workers as bad women. It prevents them from copying and taking advantage of the freedom sex workers fight for. And this is from Thierry Schaffhauser, who wrote for The Guardian back in 2010 about this particular phrase. Whorephobia, she goes on to say, operates as a way of controlling and policing women's behavior, just as homophobia does for men. Okay. As it happens, the widespread of the word whore as an insult may be part of the reason many people were confused by Volz's use of the term whorephobic. Those who are accustomed to hearing the word whore as a pejorative may be puzzled to encounter a slur with one more progressive vocabulary. Indeed, it's worth noting that at least one reply to Volz's tweet suggested the word use of anti-sex work rather than whorephobic, out of concerns that some sex workers may have an aversion to word using an active slur that hasn't been wholly reclaimed. Glitterosaurus Rex says that recently folks have been reclaiming whore, adding that this reclamation isn't just limited to the sex work community, but also extends to non-sex workers who have had the slur weaponized against them in an attempt to shame mostly female sexuality. I don't understand the attack here. I feel like this is just another thing, another way of victimizing women. I don't want to have women being victimized. And for this, I mean, just being tagged something where you're called a whore or a slut, remember, that goes both ways. Women and men, and of whatever race, gender, persuasion, they all get called that. Okay? And then guys get the same thing, too. They also get called whores. Let's just be honest with it. Or sluts. It goes both ways. So I don't get that part. But again, it just sounds like it's another thing for women to be victimized as, or to play the victim card, is to be called, is that whorephobic is now a thing. Like transphobic or homophobic. I don't know if I believe that so much, but Kayla goes on and says, whorephobia is currently acceptedly and necessarily a term used to describe fear or hatred of sex workers and the many, many ways those internalized mentalities manifest in everyday life. While when it would be quite a charmed world if shitballs argued whorephobia was in fact not a thing, the unfortunate truth is that whorephobia is a very real thing indeed, and it doesn't just affect sex workers. Whorephobia remains a real and ubiquitous aspect of society. Regardless of your relationship to sex work or sex workers, you've most likely both encountered and perpetuated whorephobia at some time or other. It's real, it's dangerous, it kills. You should know what it is. I don't see where this has gone. This is so tragic here. But I mean, for women to be much more inclined with sex work, because now we're getting more virtual sex work than ever before, because more women are inclined to join OnlyFans in some cases. Some younger women feel like they need to go and do this when the pandemic started. But I think with OnlyFans, some women are not going to be able to stick with that, or they just won't be using it as such to be treated as a sex worker anyway. I don't know if it's going to be something that'll be so commonly heard at some point. I think that's just a point that's being made here. But it's just another tag. And I just don't agree with it. I don't get where it's all coming from, why we have to have another word. Just something else to make women feel like they are unafraid, they're unable to protect themselves or be able to move along in society, that they're being repressed or being disenfranchised. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Just don't. Anyway, I will leave it there, and I'll talk to you next time.